All right, welcome. Today, we're diving into a huge question, one that really gets at the heart of who we are and where we're all headed. Is all of human history just the same old game of power played over and over again, just with fancier tech?
I mean, let's get right into it. Have we actually changed as a species? Or have we just gotten a lot better at hiding our most basic primal instincts for ambition and control? It's a debate that really gets to the bottom of how we view, well, everything.
You know, this whole debate is perfectly summed up by two giant thinkers. On one side, you've got Robert Greene, the ultimate cynic. He basically argues that human nature is fixed. That same lust for power that drove a medieval king, it's the exact same thing driving a Silicon Valley CEO today. But then, on the other side, you've got the optimist, Yuval Noah Harari. He believes we've made real, tangible progress, that we've evolved beyond might makes right through cooperation and the rule of law.
So, who's right? Are we stuck in some endless, cynical Game of Thrones, or have we genuinely leveled up as a species? Let's dig into that cynical view first, shall we?
So if you're looking at the world through Greene's eyes, things like morality, ethics, even just being nice, they aren't really genuine ideals we're trying to live up to. Nope. They're actually very sophisticated tools. They're masks. Masks we wear to get ahead and play the game of power more effectively.
And you see this pattern pop up again and again throughout history. It's kind of fascinating, really. Monarchs didn't just say, hey, we want your land. They claimed it was their divine right. Colonizers didn't call brutal exploitation what it was. They called it a civilizing mission. And fast forward to today, military interventions are often sold as fights for freedom. Just like some companies use that "we're a family" line to ask for more from their employees. See, the mask changes, but the game underneath, that stays exactly the same.
But then you've got Harari, who comes in with a really powerful counterargument. He points out that, yeah, for most of history, might was right, but things have changed. We've built these huge global institutions like the UN, and we've created these incredibly complex webs of trade agreements, and these things allow for trust and cooperation on a scale our ancestors couldn't even imagine, which has led to a real, measurable drop in big wars. That has to count for something, right? That's real progress, isn't it?
And that's where we hit the really crucial question. Is the kind of peace Harari is talking about genuine progress, or is it just a slicker, more sophisticated mask for power? I mean, let's be honest. A lot of this peace has been kept by the threat of total nuclear destruction, and proxy wars have still ripped entire regions apart. So are these new laws really changing us for the better, or are they just a new set of rules for the same old, brutal game?
Okay, so to try and make sense of all this, let's use a simple analogy that might just bring these two very different views together. Let's think about history as a game, with a player and a board.
First up, you have the player. Now this is Robert Greene's turf. The player is our core human nature, those raw, unchanging instincts like ambition, envy, and fear that have been driving our behavior for thousands of years. The argument here is that this part of us, it just doesn't really change. And then, of course, you've got the board. This is Harari's world. The board is the context we're all operating in, the evolving set of rules, laws, institutions, and what we consider moral or not. The board is what decides which moves are okay and which ones are out of bounds.
And boom, right there, that's where it all comes together. Maybe Greene and Harari are both right. Our basic instincts, the player, they stay the same. But the environment, the board, that has changed dramatically. Think about it. In a medieval court, your envy might make you poison a rival. On a corporate board today, that same exact feeling of envy might lead you to strategically maneuver to get them fired. It's the same player, just a different board.
All right, so let's put this model to the test, shall we? Let's apply this player versus the board idea to one of the longest and, frankly, most brutal games in all of human history, colonization.
If you look back, you can see a perfect evolution of the board. Way back before 1648, conquest was the law. You took land because you were strong enough to take it. Simple. Then, by the 1800s, the board changed. You suddenly needed a moral reason, the civilizing mission. Then after World War II, the board changed again. Outright conquest became illegal, so the game shifted to economic control, using things like debt and trade deals. And now, well, now the board is digital. The game is all about controlling data. The player's desire for expansion and control, that's still there. But the rules and the masks, they just keep on evolving.
And that brings this whole game right to our front door. Because the board we're playing on right now is digital. And the grand prize? Well, that's artificial intelligence.
So what's everyone fighting for on this new board? In this new digital empire, the most valuable things in the world aren't land or oil or gold anymore. They're data, the raw material of this new age, and compute power, the engines that turn all that data into actual intelligence and control.
And just like in every era before, each of the great powers is busy crafting its own moral mask. The US talks a great game about freedom and innovation, but the cynical reality is often about creating monopolies and making others dependent. China speaks of shared prosperity, but the goal really seems to be creating digital vassal states that rely on its technology. And the EU? It champions ethics and dignity, which you could argue is often a defensive move to try and regulate a technology it's kind of falling behind on.
And here's the really crucial thing to understand. This game is escalating. Old school colonization, that was about controlling land, physical stuff. The next phase, digital colonization, was about controlling the flow of data and the infrastructure behind it. But AI colonization, man, that goes so much deeper. It's about controlling knowledge, our very sense of reality, and even the process of how we make decisions.
So, let's wrap this all up. Robert Greene was right about the player. Our core drives and ambitions, they don't really change. And Yuval Noah Harari was right about the board. Our laws, our institutions, our sense of morality, they do evolve. And morality itself? Well, it often ends up being the mask that makes a power grab seem legitimate on whatever the current board looks like. And today, that board is digital, and the biggest game in town is the race for AI.
And all of this leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought. Is this incredible technological revolution, AI, truly a great leap forward for humanity, for cooperation, for progress? Or is it just the oldest game in the book, dressed up in its newest, most sophisticated, and maybe its most dangerous mask yet? The game is on.